From fine motor skills like tying knots, to large biomechanical movements like self arrest, to behavioral changes like drinking some water every 30 minutes, we often need to change our habits for the outdoors. Today, we are talking about what science has to say about habit formation. Hello, everyone. I'm Jason. Our brains are lazy. Okay, maybe that's overstated, but they do strive to be efficient, and that's the key when it comes to understanding how best to create habits that support our outdoor adventuring, from the stuff we want in muscle memory to behavioral practices. Our brains use up more energy than any other single organ in our bodies. About 20% of our energy goes to our brains. So, because we evolved from a time of scarce and infrequent food, we evolved in ways to conserve energy. With our brains being such energy hogs, they have a large role to play in that energy conservation. How do they do it? By trying to develop specific neural pathways for things that we repeat. Our brains don't want to send electrical signals that jump around from neuron to neuron in different ways every time we do something. They want to make one path and try to get as many activities as they can to fit into that path. This is why repetition is such a powerful tool. It creates habit, and habituated actions take less energy, literally. So habits make things easier. Great. But how do we form habits? Well, it depends upon the type of action we're trying to habituate. Let's look at muscle memory for fine motor skills and larger biomechanical movements, as well as behavior patterns from the mundane to the complex. Looking at knot tying as an example of fine motor skills. You need to be able to tie your knots right every time when technically climbing. A failed knot could mean death. There isn't a lot of consensus on exactly how many repetitions it takes to put something into muscle memory, but we do know that is in the thousands, if not the tens of thousands. So you want to do 100 a day or something like that. If we're talking knots, I can do that while watching TV or listening to a podcast or whatever. But a Johns Hopkins study has also indicated that introducing small changes to your practice can actually help you learn these skills faster, up to twice as fast. So imagine practicing both with and without gloves on, or maybe you can add in different thicknesses of rope or cord. When we look at larger biomechanical movements, things get more complicated. Let's say we're talking about self-arrest, the action of using your ice axe to stop a slide down a snow slope if you should slip. Here, it is hard to get in the repetitions because each repetition takes too long. If each self-arrest sequence takes 1 minute to start the slide, get into a rest, and then walk back up the slope, that would mean 1,000 reps would take nearly 17 hours of non-stop practice to complete. That's where drills come into play. By breaking movements into component parts, you can ingrain sections of a movement much more efficiently. It doesn't take 1 minute each time. It may only take fractions of a second. But for sequential movements where one part of the movement leads to another, like self-arrest, you then have to put the pieces back together or you actually end up getting worse at the skill. When you first put those pieces back together, your brain is consciously trying to get the sequence right. First do this, then this, then this. And if you only have a fraction of a second, it takes too long. So put two pieces together and practice them. Then keep adding in more until you are practicing the whole movement. When we start talking about behaviors, things become even more complicated still. A mundane behavior, like remembering to drink water every half hour on a hike or climb, can be augmented by doing things like setting a watch alarm to remind you. But even then, you still have to register in your brain that you're going to respond to the alarm by drinking. You have to consciously will a changed behavior. We want to reduce that burden on our consciousness. There's some evidence that anywhere between 20 and 250 days are needed to form a new behavioral habit. But that varies based on a lot of things, not the least of which is the number of repetitions. If we look at something like a morning workout, that really can only happen once a day. And then there is the added complexity that you may not find the immediate biological feedback to be pleasant. You might not like feeling tired or sore or any of the things that come with starting a new workout routine. So it actually becomes important to separate the goal of the behavior from the goal of simply forming a habit. Using our example, in the beginning, it's more important that you are working out than it is that you are working out especially effectively. Once the workout, or stretching, or putting on your sun hat right after the sun rises, or whatever, once that becomes a habit, you can then worry about doing it better or more efficiently. Well, that's a pretty quick overview of habits. I'll provide some links with additional information in the video's description. Habits can be either difficult enemies or powerful allies, so we want to be methodical about the habits we want to create for ourselves. Thanks for coming to the end of this video. Please hit that like button, ring that bell and subscribe, and check out our website at shortguysbetaworks.com to find gear lists, all of our videos, and additional thoughts and information. What's a new habit that you once had to form of which you are particularly proud? Let us know in the comments section. We'll see you next week and keep on getting more out of that big outside.